Columbia River Maritime Museum. My name is Julia. I work in the education department here at the museum. And today, for this week's Past to Present lecture, we are joined by Captain Dan Jordan. So Captain Dan is a ship pilot for the Columbia River Bar Pilots. Prior to becoming a pilot, he spent 24 years at sea in the U.S. Merchant Marine, with 12 of those sailing as master of cargo ships. He also served as a Naval Reserve officer for 20 years and was a ship handling instructor at the Naval Ship Handling School in Little Creek, Virginia. He attended the California Maritime Academy and earned a BS in Nautical Industrial Technology. Dan joined Columbia River Maritime Museum's Board of Trustees in 2017. He likes outdoor activities, including sailing, hiking, skiing, and caring for and rowing his 1947 Bar Pilot rowboat. Without further ado, please welcome Captain Dan Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. I just thought I'd wear this so you see what we look like when we board a ship and meet the captain on the ship and the crew. This coat, if we go in the water, automatically inflates. We have a locating beacon on it and a strobe light as well. So all the safety gear is built into it, and a harness that I can buckle up. But I'm not going to wear it all through this. Past and present, I'll start out a little bit on some past. First of all, just look at this picture alone. Right around here are the entrance ranges. So when we're inbound on a ship, we can see those two lights when they line up right in the center of the channel for us. The Columbia River Bar makes great pictures. As you see here, you wouldn't want to be standing on the bow of that ship there, but it's probably a fairly decent ride on that ship. This is what the Columbia River Bar looked like before the jetties were built. There was a big wide opening there, sand island out in the middle. So you had water just kind of flowed naturally in and out. That's what made it the graveyard of the Pacific, what it was called, because they never knew where the channel was. And most of the sailing ships that come in and out, they had pilots on them, but the channel kept moving on them. So then they added the jetties, and you can see here, this is right around the Hammond area. The jetties started way back there, and then the land started following the jetties. So North Jetty, South Jetty, and then we move on. You can see how the land just kind of developed, Sand Island moved out of the way. And with those jetties there, it stabilizes the location of the channel a lot more because it puts the currents into the channel. And putting the currents into the channel also minimizes the amount of dredging that has to be done. And we'll show you how the currents are. We have they're marked there, North Jetty, South Jetty, Jetty A, all focus the currents into the channel. And then all the way up the river, there are these things we call pile dikes. It's basically just a bunch of pilings sticking out to the edge of the channel. And they help direct the flow of the current in the channel as well. So we'll play a little video here, and you can see what it does to the currents. With the current going out there, you can see on each of the pile dikes and the north and south jetty, it just focuses that current, and then the flood tide happens and it comes back in. When the current's going out, it's the tide along with the river flow, so it's a lot stronger current going out than coming in. So as we're piloting ships, you can see that the currents are constantly changing there, which makes us pay attention. This is just shows the buoy out on the bar with a really strong current, gives you an idea. 6 knot current there. When it starts getting to 7 or more knots, that buoy can be completely underwater. And from the satellite picture there, you can see how far out the river current actually affects the ocean. So if the current's going out and the swells are coming in, it's going to be a lot rougher where that current shows. We do have a wave buoy out there, you see marked in yellow, that we can just look online and see how big the waves are and the period of the waves, direction, that sort of thing. And then if we're getting on and off by pilot boat, we'll do it quite often south of that current, when it's better weather, outside of the current than in the current. So that's the past. We move on into the future here. Pilotage is one of those things that happens in every port around the world for lots of reasons. The most obvious is to get ships in and out efficiently and safely. But it also is to protect the infrastructure of the port. You know, if a ship didn't have a pilot, they hit a dock or hit a bridge, how that would affect the economy of the port, and potential oil spills if there's collisions. So pilots serve a lot of different purposes. On the river here, we have bar pilots, which I'm a member of, along with Captain Hill sitting over there. We've got another pilot in the room with us. Bar pilots get on a ship out in the ocean, bring it in here to Astoria, and then the river pilots, it's a complete different organization, brings it from Astoria upriver to whichever port it's going to, Longview through to Portland or Vancouver. We're all licensed and regulated by the state of Oregon, and they have requirements for training for us as well, or if there's an incident, they'll do an investigation on the incident. It's a long-standing thing where Oregon licenses us and is in control of pilotage on the river here, where Washington has more ports than Oregon, so it's kind of a strange thing that it works well for the river. Having two states regulate pilotage wouldn't work out so good. Columbia River Bar pilots, there's 15 of us. All have sailed as captain on a merchant ship. It's the minimum requirement to apply is 2 years of sea time as captain, which means a whole career at sea to get that to that position. At this time, we've all gone to maritime academies. There's 5 of them around the country. We have had pilots from the Naval Academy, Coast Guard Academy, and even pilots that just worked their way up through the ranks. At this point, we're all from maritime academies. And we'll get into pictures. I like pictures better than making you read words there. So, give you an idea how big ships really are when you're going by here. And this is an older slide that we're bringing ships in that are easily 200 feet longer than this one. And then in the river, we have a standard that we want them to have at least 3 feet of water underneath the ship going by, which doesn't sound like a lot when you have a big ship there. But thankfully, the river's all sand as well. And that's just in the calm water. When we get into deeper water, it's another story. This also gives you an idea when you look out the windows here, when they're open, the channel itself is only 600 feet wide. We're right here, it's 4 miles across to Washington. So where we're piloting these ships is a whole lot tighter area than you would think. And then when we're meeting ships, that tighter area disappears even more with 2 ships there. We'll start out here with a view from the bridge of the ship, piloting in toward the Astoria Bridge. This is one of the grain ships that you see anchored out here. It's called the Panamax ship. And that has to do with fitting through the Panama Canal. But it's it makes the bridge look a little bit smaller when you're on a big ship like that coming toward the bridge. And we do a lot of training that gets us here. Here's a fun one. We go to these schools every 5 years. There's a few of them around the world, and we practice lots of different things with them. The main one that we can pick up from there is the water pressures on the hull when you're making a maneuver and how that affects the ship. And if you have a collision or run aground, it doesn't matter in the model. So we practice things that we might not practice on a ship. And sometimes we'll go to a simulator. The simulator's up in Seattle. When we had the really big container ships just starting to come in here, as a group, we decided that we wanted to practice on those before we actually got the biggest ones coming in. So we all went up to Seattle in different sessions and practiced driving these big ships. 1,200 feet long, 160 feet wide. It's a big ship in a 600-foot wide channel. And so now I'll move on to the bar itself. We talked about the currents already, but there's river currents, ocean currents that can be caused by the winds. Winds and swell can all come from different directions or the same direction. It's just a very dynamic place right there on the bar. So for every ship we pilot, we consider three questions. We'll start out with the first one here. Is it safe for the ship to cross the bar? In the summertime, that's pretty easy to answer. Flat water, nice beautiful day, most likely going to be safe for the ship. But in the wintertime, it's a little more challenging question sometimes. And this shows an example of one that probably was pushing the limits. So first thing we consider is the weather. And we talked some about that, the swell and the sea. Swell being driven by an offshore storm, big storm, and the seas are driven by the local winds. Different types of seas. The current, is it going in or going out, makes a difference. Wind, and the timing of the storm. Is it arriving at flood tide or arriving at ebb tide? I just have to put this kind of thing up. Point out the weather that we have here. Everywhere else in the world, this thing would have a name, but here it's just a winter storm for us. We have buoys out there that measure wave height, period, direction. The little round one there is from Scripps Institute of Oceanography. It's a small buoy, only does waves, but it does them really good. We have a couple of those offshore here. And the big one there is a NOAA buoy, which does not only waves, but it also does wind, sea temperature, lots of different weather things. We use the data ourselves, but another thing that you wouldn't think about is the National Weather Service, the forecast that they're giving. They have models at the forecast office, 3 different models they're looking at. If they all agree, they're happy. If they don't agree, they're not so happy. But they look out at these buoys, and if what's actually occurring is different than the model, then they actually adjust the models and give us a better forecast. So that's a useful part of it. These are where the buoys are. The blue ones are the ones owned by NOAA. The yellow ones are those little script wave buoys. And from the distance out there, we can estimate when the storm is going to get on the bar, and when should we be crossing, when shouldn't we be crossing. This is just one of the web pages there. Those bars there are showing the wave height. With the red one, it just automatically turns red when it gets around 20 feet. So start thinking about the safety of a ship in 20-foot waves. And one thing that people don't normally think about is on those buoys, the wave height you're seeing there is the average of the upper third of the wave height. The biggest wave that can be out there could be double. So if it says there's a 20-foot wave, there could be a 40-foot wave out there on occasion. This is what we get from the Scripps buoys. That magenta line is a forecast. The green one is what's actually happening. So we can look, that peak there, the peak wave was much bigger than the forecast. So we have that in mind when we're trying to decide whether or not we want to cross the bar. This just shows the bar there. That black line is where the channel is, and you can see where that wave buoy is. The red spots are higher wave heights generated by shallow water. So the swell here is coming from the southwest. When it gets to that shallow water, the waves actually get bigger. So if you're out there on a fishing boat, you think about that. You might not want to go there if it's a southwesterly swell. But if it's a westerly swell, it changes completely different. The bigger wave there, you can see goes right across the channel at a place further out than it normally would otherwise. And see where that wave buoy is because of that. That wave buoy is actually underreporting the wave height. So we think about that as well. And then the tide changes and goes out, and then big waves go somewhere else. The other things we consider is the ship. What's its ability to maneuver? Does it have a lot of horsepower or just a little bit of horsepower? Is it loaded deep or not? Sometimes we'll have a ship out there that can just barely push its way into the currents, 3 or 4 knots, where big container ship that's only half loaded, has all sorts of horsepower, is not a problem at all. And under keel clearance, we talked about that a little bit, the 3 foot underneath in calm water, but out there when you're bouncing around in 15-foot swells, it's a whole different animal to calculate and estimate under keel clearance. And you definitely don't want to bounce on the bottom in a 15-foot wave. So we look at this for ships. That top graph there shows the current opposing the swell, which shortens the period, makes the swell bigger. Probably better for the longer ship. It might be spanning 2 swells and going up and down fairly even, where the shorter ship might be jumping around a little bit more. But then when the tide changes, that bottom where the flood tide, where the current and the swell are going together, it stretches them out, which is better for the little ship, but not for the bigger ship. So we have to consider that when we bring ships out as well. All the different motions the ship has, every one of those motions, a different part of the ship is getting closer to the bottom. And I will play this for you. A pilot took this on his iPhone going out. I'm going to turn on some sound just for the fun of it. So rolling around, you can hear stuff falling off the counters. And here comes a much bigger wave. You don't want to be standing on the bow in this kind of weather. So as this is going on, that pilot's still figuring out how he's going to get off the ship as well. He's going to find out how to use a helicopter. But once we get further out away from the bar and out of that current, then the wave height decreases and it gets a lot calmer. And we'll turn off the sound for the rest of it. Question 2, can I get on or off? And we either go by pilot ladder and pilot boat or from helicopter. We use the helicopter about 65% of the time. It's a lot faster for us getting in and out. It can fly out to the ship in 12 or 13 minutes, just a couple of minutes to hoist us on or off and fly back. Where in rough weather, riding a boat out there could easily be an hour or more. So using the helicopter makes us more efficient. If we're not wasting a lot of time riding out on the boat, we can work more ships. And in rough weather, you can imagine it might be nicer to get hoisted off by helicopter than climb down a rope ladder. We have 2 boats, 1 helicopter that we use for our transportation system. These boats are aluminum jet boats, no propellers on them. They'll do about 30 knots, quick boats, and they're built rollover capable. If they capsize, they will right themselves. Not without breaking a few things, but you'll survive it. The reason we have 1 helicopter and 2 boats is sometimes the helicopter can't fly, like in the fog or lightning storms or our most recent ice storm. We don't want to be flying in those kind of conditions, so we have to use the boat. And if one boat is going through some maintenance, we have to have a second boat just to make sure that the river system stays open and commerce keeps moving. This is the video here I'll show. It's obviously very nice weather with a nice open ocean, flat ocean. We actually open the door in that helicopter and climb out of that door before the helicopter's over the ship. So that they start hoisting us down as they move into the ship, and then once we're on deck, we unhook and they fly away. So this is why I turned the sound off, otherwise you just hear the helicopter. So see, they just go in, set them on deck, unhook, they pick the hook up, and they fly away. And that's a pretty easy commute in a day like that. This one here, as you watch, right here is the pilot standing there waiting to get hoisted off the ship. But there's a lot of grain dust on the ship there. This ship is loaded full of wheat and a lot of wheat dust on deck. And you'll see what happens here. Because of that dust, the helicopter is a lot higher, it's a much higher hoist, so that the dust doesn't get into the engines of the helicopter. it's pretty amazing to me that that winch operator is low on the hook and the pilot can actually even see him. More or less judge the distance from that hook from the pilot's hand. But once we get the hook, it's a real quick maneuver just to hook it onto our harness. We give them a thumbs up and they hoist us away. So there comes the pilot. If you're afraid of heights, it's probably not the kind of view you want.
Is that you?
That was me. Recognize the coat?
Yeah. I recognize the nose.
So this one though was not me, but one of my colleagues who's now retired, he got hoisted off this ship, got into the helicopter and just turned around and took this picture. So he was standing on that deck where all that water was just 30 seconds before. So here's a couple of videos on the pilot ladder. Before we get started on it, I'll show you a few things. This line here that's red and white, the division between red and white is 9 meters to the deck of the ship. And the purpose of that is if we're climbing a ladder, we really shouldn't be climbing more than 9 meters, at roughly 30 feet. Because if you fall, then you hit the water harder. If it's less than 9 meters, you probably walk away from it. Much more than 9 meters, you get more injured if you fall. So if that red is out of the water, then we rig, we call a combination ladder, has the rope ladder up here, but then also a little gangway. So we just step across and walk up the stairs there, so we don't have to climb more than the 9 meters. So we'll get this one going, and the ship is rolling in this video and going up and down, and so is the boat and the camera. So it's a little confusing, but you'll see what happens here. And this will be a pilot getting on the ship. So that's our deckhand on the bow there. It has his flotation on, but he also has a harness around him, tied to a rail that goes around. So he can walk all around the ship tied on. The purpose of that is if we lose our balance, he can grab us without worrying about going swimming. So see the boat going up and down on the ladder. Some of that's the boat moving, some of that's the ship rolling. If it's too much, we don't have to do it. We can change the course of the ship. Sometimes just turning the ship itself stabilizes the ship for a few minutes. But it's all just a matter of timing. So there's a pilot up on the bow. Very similar coat to the one I was brought in here. We all wear helmets as well when we're there, and some different types of clothes. You want rain pants on there, otherwise you're going to get wet on a day like today. So what you want to do is step onto that ladder when the boat is up higher on it so that the boat drops out from under you. If you step on that ladder in a low spot, then the boat chases you up the ladder. So we timed that pretty well. Probably turned the ship there to stabilize it for a bit. And this is will be a pilot getting off the ship. When you see water coming off the deck of that ship, that's coming from a wave on the other side of the ship. We always do what we call create a lee, and the side of the ship where the ladder is, you want on the lee side of the ship so that the waves aren't splashing us as much. So this one here, it's also, it's a windy day, so the bouncing around is a little more violent. And we always have either one or two of those extra ropes. We call it a man rope. It's a manila rope that will slide down. In that kind of weather, you don't want to just plan to climb down a ladder and step off to the boat because the boat could come up and injure your leg. But if you slide down that rope, it's safer. So they're obviously not comfortable with this one. So they're going to get the ship to rotate, to turn and stabilize. And you just time it right and jump onto the boat. That's it. Question number 3, can the boat or helicopter get home? I don't want to take a ship out there in really rough weather, and then get on the ship, or get on or off the ship and have the boat stuck out there if the tide changes, and if it changes from flood tide to ebb tide, breakers on the bar. So we think about our crew members as well, in both the boat and the helicopter, when we're deciding whether ship should sail. And if we can't answer all of those questions positively, then we'll stop the motion or movement of ships. And it used to be called bar closures for 150 years or so. Now it's kind of a changed terminology. The Coast Guard closes the bar to all vessels based on their ability to rescue you. So we don't have any authority over fishing boats or tugboats, just over the ships that we pilot. So the Coast Guard closes the bar, or we suspend pilotage service. And they can interact with each other different ways. So the Coast Guard can close the bar, but their 47-foot motor lifeboat isn't going to rescue a 700-foot ship. So if we still think it's safe to move a ship, we just call the Coast Guard and get permission from the Coast Guard to sail the ship, even though they've closed the bar. Or if they leave the bar open, we may suspend pilot service if we don't think it's safe for the ship. And we'll get into different levels of how we look at those. On inbound ships, it's pretty easy. If you fly out there in a helicopter, 15-minute flight out, you can fly right over the bar and see what the waves look like, see how the ship is. If it's safe, we can get in maybe 45 minutes to an hour inside in calm water. It's a quick movement. So we just keep inbound ships coming until we don't think it's safe for that ship. Outbound ships are another story. I should point out here on this slide, this is when we stop the inbound ships, and then there's no safe place to anchor out there. So they just drift around outside until we're ready to move them again. On outbound ships, a ship leaving the Portland area, takes 3 hours to order the line handlers from the longshoremen to let it go, 3 hours to get tugboats, 3 hours to get a river pilot. So there's a 3-hour setup before they can even leave the dock, then another roughly 6 hours to Astoria, and maybe 2 or 3 hours crossing the bar. So if we don't think it's safe for an outbound ship, we have to make that decision almost 12 hours in advance. A lot more difficult than inbound ships. And sometimes we make more conservative decisions on the outbound ships than the inbound ships just because of that time. We don't want to get a ship sailing and then change our mind after it's already come down the river. Gives you an idea of the length of the river there. From Portland to Vancouver, there's Klamath and Longview, the 4 major ports upriver that we bring ships out of. And below Longview, there really is no safe anchorage for deeply loaded ships. So we have to make that decision before ships in Longview if we're going to change our mind. This is just a graph off of one of NOAA's weather buoys showing wave height over time. And I'll just run by some things here with you. Here's, at that height there is 20-foot high waves. Remember, that's the average of the upper third. So we know a storm's coming. We've seen a forecast, and down here around 14 feet, we're moving ships. We might stop the outbounders first, and then as it gets worse and worse, we might stop the inbounders. Then there's no ship traffic. That's all the way up to 29 feet there. And then the challenge then, once we suspend pilot service, is when do you start the outbounders going? And that one really is, so stopping traffic is based on safety, starting it is based on the economy and getting commerce moving again. So in this one, waves start coming down, we start thinking, when are we going to open it? Luckily, we didn't in this one because the storm stalled for 6 hours at right around 22-foot waves. But then once it starts dropping off, we might start inbounders and start outbounders. Work ships all through the lull, then a few days later, another storm comes and we do it again. It can be every other day, storm coming through here for a week or more. Keeps us busy in the wintertime. One thing we are considering, it doesn't change our decision on safety, but the impact of the delays. So depending on the ship, the daily charter rate of that ship can be anywhere from $4,000 to $70,000 a day, just for one ship. If it's sitting at a dock up in Portland or Vancouver, another ship can't go in there and start loading, so the port starts losing money. A unit train here, this next one down, a unit train is 110 cars long. It takes 6 of those to load one of these ships at anchor out here. So if we stop traffic for any length of time, and you could have, there's 5 grain terminals upriver. It's 5 times 6, it's a lot of trains that may be waiting. Those trains then start charging penalties as well, if they're waiting. A long delay could be added congestion to the rail system, or even the terminals that are loading those trains back in Idaho and Eastern Washington. And we'll just throw this one out here. These are all of the states that ship grain through the Columbia River system. So on a really long delay of shipping, we can be affecting that many states. So that's where we lose sleep, is we want to get it going. We don't want to delay ships if we can. We'll change the subject now. Some other fun challenges. Buoy-tin salmon season. A lot of boats out there. When you look at that view as you're driving a ship, it's pretty hard to turn and avoid one. If you turn to one, there's another one. So we go slow, blast our horn. Quite often we'll have the Coast Guard or a pilot boat escorting us, trying to chase them away. But if they have a fish on, and we can tell, watching through binoculars, if the net's in the holder, they'll probably get out of the way. But if they're holding the net and ready to get fish, they're not going to move till they get Here's a radar picture going through those same boats to give you an idea how busy it is with our ship being in the center of that picture. Lots of boats out there. And then sometimes it's foggy too, where you can't even see them. So the standards we kind of follow is, if it's less than half a mile visibility, we probably won't start the movement of the ship. Won't leave the dock, won't bring it in. But if it gets foggy, once you're moving, it's safer to continue on with the transit. So we will continue with the transit, even if we can't see it. We have radar, we have what we call a portable pilot unit, which is an electronic display of the chart and vessels around it. So there are tools that we have. You don't have to see it to pilot, but we like to. And this is what it looks like in crab season with big bright crab boats. With those lights there, you can't see anything. And this is the last slide. Safe ports don't happen by accident. Everybody has to work at them. I didn't mention everybody that works at them. The Coast Guard, of course, ourselves, the National Weather Service. They do an amazing job for us. We have a direct line from our office to the weather forecasters. So if we're questioning weather, we can just pick up the phone and call them. They'll tell us if they're comfortable with their forecast or not comfortable with it, help us make our decisions. On that, open it up for any questions.
So I'm going to come around with a microphone. Just raise your hand if you have a question, and then we can all hear what you'd like to ask.
I was just curious if, in making the decisions, is it all 15 bar pilots, or are there a few people on duty that make the decision, or who is it that actually makes
When we rotate around, we always have one pilot that we call the operations pilot, who's that pilot's obligation to make the decision. But if it's really really rough weather, really dicey decisions, more often than not, he's not alone. So there'll be other pilots if we can talk amongst ourselves. One of the nice things too is, of all of us, our seagoing experience before we became pilots, we're on different ships and different kind of routes. Pilots that ran tankers in Alaska, some with grain ships running overseas, some on container ships. So if there's challenging decisions, more likely than not, we have a pilot who's been there. We'll include that pilot certainly in the discussion.
In your conversation about currents and tides, when you've got a strong flood tide coming in, and I think that's for several hours, right? And you've got this enormous amount of water coming down the Columbia River, what keeps the river from overflowing its banks when you have that kind of competition?
Well, that's a good question. It does go up and down on the banks, and you'll see that right out here. Yeah, I don't know that I have a clear question other than nature has a way of controlling things.
You showed a slide where the waves were coming over the ship and you were going in to pick up a pilot. What is that pilot on that ship holding on to so they don't get washed over with those waves?
Yeah, it's a good question, and most likely that pilot was standing in between the two hatches, so that the waves were deflected by the hatch itself. At the last minute, we're not holding on to anything really, but it wasn't on the deck there when he was getting lynched. It came on afterwards. And if you see a wave coming like that, you don't have to walk out and grab the hook from the helicopter. You can wait until it's clear, then go out and do it.
What is the motivation for anybody to become a part-time?
That's a good question. So I was at sea for 24 years, and a lot of the motivation on it was to spend more time at home. Going to sea, I was gone easily 4 months at a time, sometimes up to 6 months gone. So yeah, you get home more often. And this, we didn't go to sea because we're looking for stable jobs. We wanted, we like the excitement a little bit.
Are there even bigger container ships that can't cross the Columbia Bar?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are bigger container ships, certainly. And we're just gonna let them gradually get bigger, and at some point they may not be able to. Depth is one thing, and it's not just crossing the bar, but the channel in the river all the way to Portland is dredged to 43 feet. And we're moving ships that drop 43 feet. So to do that, you have to time it with the tide, all the way up the river to Portland. So the easy answer on that is if there's a container ship that's drawing 45 feet or more, we won't bring it in. So it has to have 43 foot of draft or less in order to come in.
You had a slide showing that the captain has overall control of the ship. How often does that captain say to the bar pilots, no, I don't agree with your decision?
I haven't experienced it here, nor have I even heard of it. More often than not, they find themselves in a situation where they rely on our expertise. And the nice thing is sailing captain, we communicate well with them because we've been there as well. When I sailed captain, I did do that a couple of times. And it is a challenge, but you're right, the captain is always in command of the ship. We're in charge of the navigation of the ship, but he has the authority to take it away from us if he wants to. But in those big waves, it's not something that they're used to doing while they see land. So they're not likely to.
Two questions, please. How are the pilots assigned to the ships on a daily basis? How is that determined? And secondly, in crabbing season with the big bright lights, is it like on a highway? How do you tell them to dim their lights? Are you radio communication?
Yeah, with most of the crab boats, we're in radio communications, so we can ask them to turn off their lights. The locals are really good at it, but when crab season comes, we get fish boats from all over the place. Yeah, the locals are almost always on the radio. And we meet with the crab fishermen a couple of times a year as well. And basically, yeah, what we've said with them in these meetings is, if you're gonna be in the channel, please, just have your working lights on, not the bright lights, because we need to see the channel. But we recognize that there's crab pots all around outside the channel as well. So if they're gonna be out of the channel away from us, they need to have some lights on so they don't get tangled up in the crab gear. So a big part of it is just regular communications and building a relationship with them. Yeah, they're good at turning them off if you ask them to usually.
And how do you assign your pilots to the ships?
Oh, yeah, that question too. We have a rotating schedule. And sometimes when we get called to go to work, there might only be one ship we work, but we could work 2 or 3 in one call. We have very similar fatigue rules as airline pilots. So if we can work, more than one ship, when we're called, we do, and then the next pilot would pick it up after you get outside or not outside, but near your fatigue rules. But it's just a rotating schedule on that.
How many ships do you get through in a day?
That's a good question. And my joking answer on that is, ships are like bananas, they come in bunches. But yeah, from one day to the other can be completely different. Can be up to 20 in a day, but usually it's 10, 8 or 10, something of that nature. And once in a while we'll have a day with no ships at all.
How do you avoid all those crab floats and traps?
We don't try to avoid the crab pots. The way the ships are set up, with a big, 100-foot wide bow, it'll push push it out of the way before it gets to the propeller. The ships aren't as likely to destroy crab pots or get tangled up as crab pots as tugboats. That's one of the meetings we have. There's actually some voluntary towboat lanes all up and down the coast here that the towboats, tugboat with a big cable going to the barge, that cable will tangle up lots of crab pots. So if they stay in these voluntary lanes and the crab fishermen don't fish in these voluntary lanes, then that protects them.
Could you comment on the notch in the rim of the hull?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's where, when we're laying alongside the ship, that notch in the fender there is where the pilot ladder would be. So we can lay alongside the ship without damaging the ladder. It's not really a notch in the hull, it's just the fender.
Where do you turn over the ships to the river pilots, and does it vary?
Yeah, so whether inbound or outbound, we're always exchanging with the river pilot, basically right out in front of the museum here up to close to Pier 39. That stretch is the normal area. When we do, there's a pilot boat, it's not ours, it's Foss Maritime, runs out of 14th Street, the Connor Foss. Will bring us out for an outbound ship. We'll climb up onto the ship while it's moving. We try and do a little less than 8 knots. and we'll go up to the bridge of the ship and turn over with the river pilot on the bridge of the ship. They give us information about the ship, so that we're comfortable, and then the river pilot climbs back down to that same boat, or versa versa for inbound. Yeah, it's basically between here and, Pier 39, but it can stretch all the way from the bridge to Tongue Point if it needs to.
Once you've put in your time as a ship's captain, what does a training period look like between going from a ship's captain to becoming a bar pilot?
Yeah, so, our training, is twofold. One is, you have to have a Coast Guard pilotage license, which requires a certain number of trips, under the supervision of a pilot, so you ride back and forth with a pilot. Then take that Coast Guard exam to get your Coast Guard pilotage license. And once that's completed, then we start a much longer process for the state pilotage license, which is also riding, back and forth under the observation or instruction of a pilot. And we have different stages in that of, if you're gonna watch the pilot do it, the trainee's gonna watch the pilot, or the pilot watching the trainee. The training for us, because of our seagoing experience and frankly, the shorter duration of where we go, it's not very long compared to most other pilot groups. Anywhere from maybe 6 to 8 months initially. It could be less. Then we have limitations on what you can do. If you didn't sail captain of a tanker, for example, you can't pilot a tanker for 2 years. And then we have some limitations as well as docking those big cruise ships. So it's for most pilots, a full 2 years before they're completely open to pilot anything.
Can you tell us what's involved with bringing a ship in to the anchorage?
Yeah, so bringing a ship into anchorage, pretty much, crossing the bar is the same as anything else. But you wanna think about, first of all, where you're going in the anchorage and slowing the ship down. There's a lot of weight behind those ships. They don't just stop on a dime. So, well before we get to the bridge, we'll have the anchors ready, and we'll start slowing down. Slow down in stages to let just the momentum of the ship slow down on its own. So when we're actually getting into the anchorage, we're at a speed where we can stop it by going astern of the engines. So we have all prepared and slowed down before we get to the anchorage. Kind of the numbers I have in my mind, which were not all the same, is less than 5 knots as you're approaching the anchorage, and less than 2 knots when you let the anchor go.
Money question. How does the fee determine for our pilots going forth and back? And then you made reference to a penalty fee that was charged. Who's assessed that penalty?
I don't recall the penalty fee.
You had a $16,500 penalty.
Oh, yeah, that's not a penalty. So on that one, the expenses of delays, that, the ship owner is chartering that ship to an operator for an amount. And if the ship is not moving, then they still have to pay that charter or rental fee. So that's what that's about. It's not necessarily a penalty, it's just a wasted day that they're paying to charter the ship. So your other question about how do we figure out how to charge it? That's the state process, and the way I describe it is kind of think of us as a private utility. We are a private company, we own the helicopter and the pilot boats, but the fee that we charge is a rate-making process with the state and industry. So think of PG&E, it's a private company, but, and the rates they charge for electricity goes through a rate-making process. We do the same thing. And the state then sets it. And Some of it's based on size of ship, and some of it's just based on, individual transit.
What would a typical crossing cost?
The average crossings now are a little over $8,000, which also funds, the pilot boats as well.
Thank you so much for your talk, it's very interesting. My question is, I always tell people that the ships are out here sitting, waiting to go into port, because it's cheaper for them to sit out here and wait. Is that true?
It's cheaper, yes, it's cheaper for them to sit at anchor. There's no fee to anchor here.
Okay.
So,
That's what I tell everybody.
yeah, no fee to anchor. If they were to go to a dock, we call it a lay berth, so dock and wait there, they're having to pay for that dock on a daily basis. And the other reason why they're anchoring here, they could be waiting offshore too. But when they come in here and anchor, then they clear customs and they have cargo hold inspectors. Before they can load their grain, they have to pass a cargo hold inspection. They can't do that out in the ocean, so they come in and do that.
Question. Years ago, we had one female bar pilot, Debbie, she's retired. Are
Mhm.
there any other female bar pilots now?
There are not now, no. We are trying our best to encourage that. But for our requirements of having 2 years as master time, we've actually kind of focused our energies on bringing people into the industry so that they can work their way up. So we do outreach programs with various schools and try and encourage people to get into the industry.
We were lucky enough to know Don Nelson. I know he went overboard once. How often do you overboard, and what happens when you do?
I never go overboard. I never have. Yeah, so in my time here, I've been a pilot now for almost 20 years. In those 20 years, we've had 5 pilots go into the water. We did lose one who trained, he and I started together. But it doesn't happen that often. So 5 in 20 years. Around the world, so we watch things worldwide as well, or countrywide, different pilot conferences we go to. There's always a few lost each year, it seems. Most of the ones that are lost, when they fall off the ladder, it's because they hit the boat. And what we do is when we get on that ladder and just get up a few steps, we have the boat pull away. You fall in the water with a coat like this on, you've got a pretty good chance of getting rescued.
We watched the ship that's tied up at the port come in the other night, escorted by the tugs. How did that operation go? You were piloting the boat, who's communicating with the tugs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pilot communicates with the tugs, and on that one it had engine problems, which we knew about in advance. And there was days of communications with the Coast Guard and with the agent for that ship of what would it take to get it in safely. And the decision was made to have 3 tugboats. With engine problems, you expect it to be slower, but good. There's always a chance that problem may get worse as you're coming in, so you want to have enough tugs so you can handle the ship if there's no engines at all. So yeah, that ship came in slow with 3 tugs, and it's tied up in Astoria now for its engine repairs. It's one advantage of tying up in Astoria, you don't have the risk of going through the bridge.
When
Oh, when did they
Power boat versus rowing or something?
Yeah, so I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but, you know, as ships, you know, the sailing ships, transitioned into tugboats, you know, stern-wheeler tugboats towing them instead of sailing them. That was the first transition, and then, with ships, you know, they transitioned into paddle wheels and propellers.
What about the bar pilot boats that you have?
Oh, the bar pilot boats itself, well, I have a boat built in 1947, that's a rowboat, so I know then, they were still. The transition, yeah, must have been in the, late 50s, early 60s. So, in those days, they had a big boat that the rowboat was on, and they would put the rowboat in the water and just row it a short distance between the powered pilot boat and the ship. And, you know, that just transitioned into basic, not an outboard motor, but just a small motor in a similar boat. Motor in between the two, the big pilot boat and the ship. So, yeah, I'm sorry I don't have an actual date for you there.
Question, have you ever lost, has a ship that you've been on ever lost power or had other significant problems while you're on it?
Oh, yeah, that's probably happened to most of the pilots. Sometimes if they lose power, they get it back, you know, fairly quickly. Or sometimes you end up running aground. Luckily, the river is mostly sand, so we haven't had any damage to ships running aground in the sand. But that does happen. And yeah, every time a ship is moving in the river, all the way from the dock upriver until it's across the bar, the anchors are clear and ready to go, just for that reason.
All right, we'll do 2 more questions. Did you have a question, Joyce?
Well, this is another one of those history ones, but I remember I was at another speech that you gave about sort of the history of bar pilots and that. How long has it been where there's been your agency or one agency rather than, I guess at one point, like Captain Flavel's time or something, it was a bit of a free-for-all, my understanding was, but how long has it been you're the designated guy who goes?
Yeah, ever since Captain Flavel. But before Captain Flavel, there were a bunch of pilots competing with each other. Some of them were in small groups, kind of unofficial groups. The thing about Captain Flavel is he saw that kind of mayhem, and he went to the state and asked the state to start a licensing process. So Captain Flavel became, you know, the first state licensed pilot, and then everyone else had to kind of follow suit. Our business started in 1846, so that's when all that occurred, really. There were competing groups before then, but we find it safer not to have competing groups.
So I have a question about fatigue protocol. You said 20 ships a day, 15 bar pilots. Is that your call based on weather and conditions and that ladder versus helicopter? Do you say I'm spent, or, and also just the incentive in terms of remuneration? Like, well, if it's 3, I can put a little more money in the bank, right? So what's?
Yeah, it is our decision. And yeah, all 15 of us are not on duty all the time, so maybe 7 or 8 on duty. And you just know that if I were to do 2 ships instead of 1, I'm more likely to have a longer stretch to sleep before I get called again. So that's the motivation to do more. You know, and if everybody thinks in those terms, then you have a longer time off before you get called again. Yeah, so yeah. With the fatigue rules, I'll just say, what we do is no more than 12 hours in the daytime, no more than 8 hours at night. So if that third ship comes up and it's outside of that time, you just don't work it. Yeah.
Let's give Captain Dan one last round of applause. So next week is our final week of the Past to Present lecture series for the year. We're gonna have Sandra Yanone coming to talk about her new book, Boats for Women. She's a poet and an author based in the Seattle area, has recently moved to the East Coast, but is coming back just for us. So that'll be on the 20th, Tuesday at 11, same room. And then we are also having Ed Joyce visit with us in this room on Tuesday, March 19th for a talk about coastal oceanography. Last but not least, you've heard me say this before, but I'm gonna say it again. There is a little half sheet on the front desk. As you're walking past, feel free to grab one. It is for the documentary Maiden that we're gonna be screening at the Columbian Theater on Friday, March 8th for International Women's Day. So if you wanna pick up that half sheet, you'll get a discounted price. It'll be $5 per ticket rather than $10 at the door. Thank you all so much again for coming, and thank you, Captain Dan.